Welcome to the Yoga Therapy Hour. Today we'll be talking with Marlysa Sullivan, who works at the Veterans Administration, and she is the champion or the lead of the yoga therapy program at the Veterans Administration. This is a really special talk to me because I think if there's something that Marlysa and I care about, it is this experience of being human and really living in this body, finding comfort, finding ease, being able to cognitively think through, why am I suffering? What's the cause of my suffering? Is it something I have control over, or is it something outside of me? All of this comes back to ethics, and not ethics in the way of here's some rules you have to follow if you're going to be considered a good person. But as you'll hear Marlysa explain, ethics is an inside job. It's a way to have inner coherence with yourself so that you feel good more of the time. It's really not even about what's out there. It's about really reflecting deeply on if I am in alignment with me. So I think you'll love today's episode. Marlysa is always such a joy to talk with. And as you know, she and I have a book coming out August 10th, 2026. And of course, we talk a lot about yoga philosophy and ethics in our new book, which is called Applications of Therapeutic Yoga in Integrative Health. And it's now available on Amazon and other places, pre-sale. All right, let's go meet with Marlysa. Welcome. Whether this is your first time listening to the Yoga Therapy Hour, or you've been with us for an entire 3 years, we just want to say that we are ready to go deeper now. This year, we'll be studying the 8 limbs of yoga with a variety of guests, and we hope you enjoyed this season. Let's go meet our guest now. Welcome, Marlysa. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. I love being here.
Marlysa, tell our audience where you are right now in the world.
Location-wise, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, and I am currently working at the Veterans Health Administration as a physical therapist as part of an interdisciplinary pain team working in telehealth. I also serve as the National Yoga and Meditation, they call it the Clinical Champion, where I champion yoga and meditation nationally. I get to lead the yoga teacher training and to support other initiatives to get involved in some yoga research.
At the Veterans
Administration. And I also am faculty there on a national interdisciplinary pain training, where we train pain teams in kind of what's new and what's best practices in interdisciplinary teaming, but also in pain care. Teaching at Notre of Maryland University, the School of Integrative Health, Masters of Science in Yoga Therapy.
My gosh, all of that must keep you very busy because you're doing tons of presentations and publications and writing books and research articles. And tell us about your newest article that's just coming out. This recording won't actually come out till probably June. So I'm pretty sure your article about cultural appropriation will be out. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, it might not quite be out by then, I've heard, because, sometimes it takes a while. I can't seem to stop writing, so I'm just going to keep writing articles. Hopefully people will read them and enjoy it, because I enjoy it. I feel like writing allows me to have such clarity in my own thinking. Like when I write, I see it on paper, and I'm like, that is not what I mean. And then it allows me to really reflect and explore. So I just really enjoy that process. But yeah, so I have a couple articles right now that are in peer review. One is with Rashmi Muller and Catherine Justice on cultural appreciation and considering the different tensions we have in medical environments, academic and research environments, and holding on to the integrity and tradition of yoga and how it is that we don't lose ourselves in these big entities and that there are very solid ways that we can hold on to and really embody the yoga philosophy foundations while we're working in these bigger settings. Like we don't have to come off center and kind of come off of our core in doing that, which I do think goes into this discussion of the yamas and niyamas of like, how do I hold on to my center and not get swept away by these bigger entities? And I have another paper that I've been working on with Stephanie Munaz and Bel Zakari on understanding frameworks of safety for co-occurring pain and PTSD for yoga. So both of those.
I want to take the first one because it has such beautiful applications to what we're going to be talking about today, which is ethics, the yamas, the niyamas. I think what I heard you say is we can be true to ourselves. We can be authentic and bring true yoga into these huge organizations like the Veterans Administration. We don't have to give up who we are to fit in.
And in fact, if we give up who we are to fit in, we begin to lose our uniqueness and we lose our role. You know, if we try to look like everybody else, then why do they even need us? And so the more we try to fit in but lose our core, the more we lose what it is that makes us special and really supports why they want to include us in their work. So I think it's so integral to what we're doing.
It's so interesting because I watch on Facebook and I see people saying, well, I can't call it yoga, or I have to water it down, or I can't bring in the philosophy. And then I just want to scream and I say, well, then you shouldn't be there. Very judgmental of me. But why would we give up who we are to try to please another? I mean, that's like a foundational teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. You don't do someone else's dharma. It's better to do your own and do it poorly than to be something you're not.
That's really what I've been reflecting on a lot lately is like this idea of how do I stay so grounded in my space and in my place and take that up and do the work that I'm here to do and not get swept up in turmoil, stress, anxieties, other people's expectations, my own expectations. And I think when we're talking about integrating yoga philosophy like the yamas and niyamas, it's not like we have to hit people over the head with them, but it's the way that like I might just approach you as a person. Like I might approach you with an intent of non-harming and truthfulness and contentment and patience. And if I'm sitting with you in those yamas and niyamas, then it changes everything about our interaction, whether it's a personal encounter or clinical encounter. Like when I'm rooted in those, it changes the way that the interaction is happening, the way that the practices are delivered, so that it can look like a physical asana class with some breathing and pranayama, but embedded in it is this integrity of the yamas and niyamas and really staying rooted in that as we go.
There's so many things to say about that, but I'm going to back up a minute and just go back to this idea that you are kind of the yoga champion at the Veterans Administration. You're running all the teacher trainings. Tell us how many people are in those teacher trainings each year, and how much do they love ethics and yama and niyama?
Well, our first year we had over 70, and since then we were like, that was too big. So we've had 48, I think, the last 2 years, around there. And we integrate philosophy from the beginning. We talk about really how it's integrated into clinical care, and people are excited by it. You know, like people are excited to learn about these kind of principles and how that yoga is so much more. And I would say not just in the yoga teacher training, but in my work with patients, like people are really interested in learning that there is a depth to yoga beyond stretching your hamstrings. Not that stretching your hamstrings is bad, it's a great thing.
Can you at times, with either the 48 people in the teacher training or even in clinical care, can you use the word yama or niyama, or do you have to translate it into some Western equivalent?
Well, I would say in the teacher training, we teach it as the yamas and niyamas, because it's like, you know, when you're learning a concept, in order for you to teach it to others, you have to know it at a bigger depth, more of a richness. And understanding that there's another language that it's offered in helps you to understand those nuances, because there isn't a one-to-one comparison between Sanskrit and English or any other language to another language. And so understanding that the Sanskrit language offers a complexity and a nuance and a richness to any of these terms helps you as a teacher to embody it and then deliver it in a way that is relevant and contextual to the person in front of you. I would say when I'm working in therapeutics, I often don't use my PT terminology either, unless someone asks about it. I mean, I will if someone asks, but like I typically speaking to the person about the practice we're doing, why we're doing it in a way that matters to them. So I would say usually in clinical care, I don't use Sanskrit. Maybe a couple times I have if people are interested in more of that side of it, but I try to keep it less cognitive and more an experiential, because I am a physical therapist. So I do a little bit more of the experiential bottom-up kind of learning. I tend to really try to create an experience and then discuss the experience.
And I think you even said to me once that in PT school, you learned a lot of Latin, but you didn't necessarily talk to your clients about the Latin roots of the pathologies.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the yamas and the niyamas today. And I think this is something that you and I many years ago really connected on. Like we care about ethics. It's a jam as individuals within ourselves, as friends, as colleagues, and even within our yoga organizations. We're always like, what about the ethics? Why do you think we care so much about the ethics? Are we the ethics?
Well, and I think, too, there's a difference between ethics and rules and laws. And I think sometimes ethical discussions can get really black and white and really like rule oriented and law oriented. And that's not what's exciting about ethics to me personally. I mean, other people might be more excited about rules. I'm less excited about rules and I'm much more excited about what matters, what has integrity, what is authentic. And I just have this belief about that we're very much all connected. We all want the best for each other, that there is this like intrinsic connectedness between all people, all beings, and that the yamas and niyamas help us to really align and center into that so that I know that my actions are in integrity as much as possible with like the betterment of all, which is what I love about that definition of the word dharma, that it's that harmony and synchrony between myself with all other creatures, people, earth. And so I think the yamas and niyamas and ethics really helps us to step back from whatever my mind is throwing up at me, like whatever the situation is throwing at me, and to like sit back in the authenticness of myself and the integrity of myself to then make a choice that it has much more clarity and much more integrity. So I think, ethics really allows us to question what is most important, what is most relevant and kind and supportive, and to choose to make the actions and the behaviors that support that. What I love about ethics too is that, again, it's not like the answer is always this. It's more like in this situation, in this context, with this background, with the future I see before me, like what is it that needs to happen? And so there's this constant like reflection that we have to do about, is this truly non-harming in this situation? Is this truly what contentment looks? Because sometimes contentment means you should do right action. You should actually do something against the grain. So, what do any of these qualities mean in the context, in this moment, is a really interesting discussion.
I love all that. Completely agree. And if I were to answer the question too, it would be, I like how it feels inside of myself as well as in relationship to know that this person is going to do what they say, that you can trust their word, that they're going to do their best to be kind. And if they aren't, they'll probably say, I'm really sorry, I had a bad day. Like there's something so comforting to me in being in relationship with people that have integrity. And then conversely, I literally can't function when there's untruths and manipulation and sneakiness and lack of accountability. Like I literally can't function in that environment. I have to exit.
Yeah, and I would say like same is true for my own experience, especially in like I know there have been situations lately where I find myself being really, I don't know how else to describe it, like I'm short with people. I'm less like spacious with people. And I don't like how that feels inside of me. And I tell people I'm sorry. They're like, "Oh, it's fine." I'm like, "But it's really not." Like that's really not, I mean, I'm glad it's okay, but I'm also like, that's not who I want to be in the world. And so I think like knowing who I want to be in the world allows me, or how I want to feel in the way that I walk in the world, allows me also to align with these ways of interactions.
Yeah. So let's begin with today we're specifically talking about the niyamas. So the yamas are kind of our social disciplines, and the niyamas are more of a personal discipline. Like, how am I going to get right with myself, inside of myself? So let's begin with, I think we both kind of agree that we love this idea of santosha or contentment, kind of as a foundation for maybe like an inner stability. So why don't we look at contentment, even though it's not the first one? It's one that you and I both love. And we've talked about this, like, how do you know that you're not being passive? Like, oh, I'm just so content, I'm just going to hang out here, versus, how do you find
Well, and that's what I've written about the idea of Aristotle and the golden mean. And I think what's interesting about what that adds to the conversation is this idea of like, what is the excess and deficiency of contentment? And the excess of contentment is kind of like spiritual bypassing and gaslighting. And it's just like, oh yeah, avoidance, everything's okay. And it's like, no, it's not okay. Of course, the deficiency is not being discontent with everything. So, how is it that we allow contentment to be something that we experience, but we also can allow contentment to guide us as to when action is necessary. Like contentment is not, it's kind of, people talk about ahimsa and satya, like non-harming and truth have to go hand in hand. And in the same way, like contentment and, really like right action, like maybe tapas have to go hand in hand in a certain way. Like contentment doesn't mean that you don't identify actions that need to be taken and then you take them with contentment,
I love that. So let's back up then and talk about shaucha, or this idea, I guess, of inner cleanliness in your mind and your body. Some people even say it could extend to your office or your car or something. But what comes up for you when we kind of look at this idea of inner purity or cleanliness, or maybe a different definition?
Yeah, I feel like this one has been harder for me because it can be taught in a very like feeling like judgmental way, like what is purity? And there's something about that is unsettling. Yeah, that it can be unsettling. But so, I mean, I think for me, it's like that idea, and especially if we think of like purity going into contentment. So am I of clear intent? Am I of clear mind? So that, that my emotions, my beliefs, what's happening around me might be going all different ways, but can I center myself in my own clarity and in my own truth so that as I work towards contentment and right action, that I have a clear way of seeing, so that I'm not, the purity is, especially as a niyama, the purity being more about this idea of clearing away the dirt. And I know you have a better way of talking about that, but clearing away like the dirt and the debris that is clouding me, even like clearing through the cliches, where it's like, am I noticing the obstacles and the way that my beliefs and emotions are clouding me? Am I noticing like my past impressions and expectations and all those things? And so if I can come into like this clear space inside of me so that can guide me towards true contentment and right action.
I love all of that. Yeah.
Do you want to say more? I'm going to ask you a question. I would love to hear you say more about like the dirt.
Are you interviewing me now?
I'm interviewing you now.
Well, we've had this discussion, because we've been writing this book together. And of course, we include the yamas and the niyamas. And I think that the point of friction is in the way that I learned, there's this idea that cleansing needs to happen. And I think for you, that word of cleansing or purity, it cannot feel great to you. And in the way that I learned, like, that's good. We got to go and clean that up. So I just think I'm not saying either one of us is right or wrong. I just think we have different resonance with the idea of cleansing. And so, like, I've learned water is a cleanser. Even I've learned that wind and dust can be a cleanser. Sunshine can be a cleanser. Like, when I think of cleansing ourselves, like a meditation on the sun can be very cleansing for the darkness in my mind, or a meditation. Mm-hmm. I was on a research study team once for people getting kidney dialysis, and they're sitting there for 3 hours. So we thought, well, let's go ahead and have them do some breath and meditation while they're getting kidney dialysis. And so we had them imagine the blood getting cleansed, like with a water meditation going all through their body.
That's
so
really nice.
I think I've had experiences where the idea of cleansing our mind and body have been a very positive thing, whereas maybe for you, it's gone into this puritanical, like, you are dirty, we must cleanse you. So I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I love that idea. And I can totally see that, those meditations, and as really like empowering and creating a lot of spaciousness.
Yeah. That as we take away some of that darkness or heaviness or dirt, then that leaves space for prana to flow. That's really the idea. So,
and I feel like in our book, if I remember correctly, there's this piece on mala, mm-hmm. as like the residue and the dirt that like clouds.
Exactly. We're going to mm-hmm. clean up that mala.
Yeah.
I'm all about it. Because
yeah.
I feel like if we don't take a good hard look at ourselves and try to clean up our stuff, we're going to step in the same pothole over and over and over. And it's painful. And I don't want to be in pain. I want to see what I'm doing wrong. I want to see where I lack clarity. I don't want to I'm not saying you do want this, right? I'm just saying.
What are you saying about me? I'm just kidding.
Positive that I feel like, I get to go a different route and not step in the pothole and suffer again.
And I like these definitions, because it's like this idea of like noticing my past habits and the ways that I typically respond and react to different people or situations. And I do that again and again and again. So being able to like clear that is very powerful.
Yeah, there's hope. And
yeah.
Even say joy. I mean, it's not joyful cleansing ourselves, but there's a joyful outcome. Mm-hmm. Let's take just a little pause and talk about something that's really exciting. I teach at the University of Minnesota. There is something called the Bakken Center for Spirituality and Healing. And we are doing some groundbreaking work over there. We offer these classes 3 times per year, once in April, a 4-week session, also in July, a 4-week session, and again in October, another 4-week session. These classes offer an opportunity to study yoga therapy within this university environment that values rigorous inquiry, evidence-informed practices, and respect for the ancient wisdom traditions. Each of our courses at the University of Minnesota Bakken Center for Spirituality is designed to help you understand how yoga can influence your nervous system, support emotional regulation, and contribute to integrative health and well-being. Whether you're a healthcare provider seeking new tools, or a yoga teacher or yoga therapist who is expanding their practice, or a lifelong learner interested in the science of yoga practice, these classes provide a structured and supportive way to deepen your skills. We'll have one series on low back and hip pain, another one on upper back and neck pain, and a third one on insomnia and anxiety. We hope to see you over at the University of Minnesota. Your participation strengthens the growing community of professionals who are redefining what care can look like in modern healthcare and education. All right, let's get back to the episode. All right, so we've talked a little bit about Shaucha and Santosha. Now, the last three niyamas of tapas, svadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana, which we'll go into each one, those three make up Kriya Yoga. And I got to be honest, it took me many decades to figure out that Kriya Yoga had three of the same components as the five niyamas. It didn't register for some period of time. So Kriya Yoga is also about cleansing. That's what Kriya means. So unfortunately, I think we are moving into more cleansing territory. So do you want to talk about tapas?
Yeah, I love, this idea in tapas that there comes a point where we do, there's this friction between what was and what is to be. And how is it that and it's great, right? Because it comes one of the last three. So after you've been practicing the five yamas and you've been contemplating things like non-harming and truthfulness, and then you come into the niyamas and you have this clear intent with purity, and you have this contentment inside of you of steadfast, you know where you are, you're rooted in yourself, you have that connection. Then from that place, you can create right action. You can begin to move against the grain sometime and challenge maybe past perceptions, past beliefs, or really kind of support a movement in the world in a certain way. So I think it's so important too that it comes at this stage, where it's one of the last three.
Okay, well, now we're going to bring up your favorite topic, the Bhagavad Gita.
Finally, just kidding.
Finally, because that's where Arjuna is. He is grounded in, this is who I am, this is my dharma, this is the moments I've trained for. And then he's conflicted, whoa, wait a minute, is this what I signed up for? So do you like that at all?
Yeah, it's just it's like for Arjuna, it's is this what I'm supposed to be doing? I'm going to be killing my cousins and family and representative of ego structures and things that have kept me safe and the familiar and the known. How do I know this is actually the right path? If these are the things that have kept me safe and these are the things that have helped me, this is what everyone else is doing. If that's over here, how can I ever really be sure that taking this alternative path is the right one, when it might mean that people will feel like it's harmful to them, or people might get hurt, or that I'm going to hurt past things? How do I actually know that this is the right path for me and the right kind of action to take? Which really goes into the next two, because it is that as I begin to take action, I have to consistently self-reflect. I have to consistently study my true intentions, my connection to my authenticity, my integrity, but I also have to surrender to what I hope is the best, to surrender to that this is what has been called for in this moment, in this way. So I think tapas is this great, what came to my mind right now is kind of how we talk about pratyahara as being this bridge between the outer and the inner. But even tapas is this really great bridge between, I've done all of this practice to cultivate who I am, my truth, my connection to self. And now that I have that grounded, can I actually move into my strength and begin to go towards what seems like right action? And can I trust that?
I just think we should point out here that, Arjuna standing on the edge of the battlefield, it isn't he's really going to kill people. It's the battle within himself. It's, here's the old ways of doing it. Here's who I thought I was. And here's these new opportunities. And I'm not sure, this is painful. So when we frame it like that, we've all been through those situations where we're thinking of trying something new and we're just not sure. And does it align with who I am? And what if it doesn't turn out? And I'm so scared and all that stuff. All right. So we've got the tapas, and then that leads to this idea of self-study. And really looking at ourselves honestly. And I have to say, I don't see many of us doing this. I don't know why, but to really get honest about our own flaws and our own biases and our own, things that we've brought to the table that cause suffering. I feel like when we get triggered, we just want to blame everybody else. We don't have this ability, at least not right away, to sit back and be like, whoa, what was my contribution to this? So do you experience it that way too, that it's hard for people to get that honest about their self-study?
Yeah, and I think too, we have to be willing to be friends and partners with people who will help us question it. Because, like, when you're in your own isolated silo, you can say, no, I was right in acting that way. I was standing up for myself. I was like, there's so many ways that you can corroborate your way of being in the world. I've had a teacher who I really appreciated who really kind of said that a lot too. Like, you have to have people in your life that aren't going to always agree with you. And they're going to sometimes say, maybe I'm not sure about that, and it's really important to have people that you trust will do that when it's necessary.
And, Arjuna had Krishna to talk through. I mean, granted, Krishna is something higher, but also just saying like, hey, have you ever thought about it this way? Could you think a different way? And so this 18 chapters of conversation, kind of questioning and reflecting, but I don't understand this point. And I think that's why we need good friends, not just in life, but also even at work. I was giving a talk on burnout the other day, and I said, you need to find a BFF at work because you need somebody that knows the culture, knows all the happenings that you can go to and be like, okay, here's what's going on for me. And a BFF at work is going to say, well, that one was your fault. You did that, or wow, that's rough. So I was just kind of suggesting we all need people. We can't do this work alone.
Yeah, and because we're interacting in the world, like we need that reflection. And sometimes I remember first learning about these terms of like householder and renunciate. And when it was first taught to me, maybe it was my own judgment, but the way it was taught to me sounded like the renunciate was a higher path. Maybe they didn't mean it that way, but that's how I took it. And then the more I've learned about yoga, the more I've been like, no, actually, the householder. Because then we actually have to meet with like situations that ask us to really question what is contentment here? What is right action here? What does that mean in this situation? So we're actually like continually faced with that exploration in a much deeper way. So come to think differently about that now.
Also that it requires a certain amount of humility.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is big. I can't tell you how many times in my mind, I'm right, the other person's wrong. Like there's not even a speck. There's not even an opening for me to be wrong. And I literally have to like let myself have that for a few minutes. You're right. You're always right. You're so smart, Amy. But then there's a point where I'm like, okay, let's look at it from their perspective. Or what if you weren't right? And as soon as you open that little door of humility, things shift. You start, I don't want to say questioning yourself, but you start seeing there's more perspectives than your own.
I think one of my ways that I've always experienced humility is just in my work with patients. I mean, I've been a PT for over 20 years, and like the things that work for some people, you're like, I don't know why. Like, like people are so complex, and what works well for one person doesn't work for another. Someone else comes up with something. So we have all this knowledge as yoga teachers and yoga therapists and physical therapists or whatever else people are. But you have all this knowledge, which is amazing and wonderful. And then when you're sitting with another person, you have that opportunity to share some ideas. But it's like what clicks for that person or how it unfolds in their life and the way that they need is going to be completely different than anyone else. And it makes the work fun. It's always different. It's always a challenge. It's always like inspiring. And I think that's, what has, I don't know, I feel like that's always kept me really grounded in being curious and in exploration, that like we're all in this together, figuring it out and wanting to work together.
Yeah, I think that word curiosity, it is like the fun way to be humble,
Mm-hmm.
Humble, you think of, I got to eat dirt, but curiosity, that's a whole nother thing. Like, wow, there's so many possibilities. It's so interesting.
Yeah, and even like with what we're talking about, like, well, what is contentment in this moment? Is it sitting back and being more passive? Is it being more active? It makes the practice of the yamas and niyamas so alive.
Yeah. All right. So we've been talking about like kind of getting grounded in your own being, cleansing out some of this stuff that's making you suffer, reflecting on who you are, why you're here, what are your habits, your patterns. And then we come to the last one, Ishvara Pranidhana. What do you want to say about that? Because to me, this is the hardest one.
I think to me, this is like such the key of the Bhagavad Gita, this idea of like, you're doing your work and then you have to let go of the results. Like you have to do what it is that's in the most integrity, that is the right thing for this moment. And then there is this like trust in that it'll show up the way that it needs to show up, but that you have no control over exactly what that's going to look like. And I think, one of the pluses at working in a big institution like I am right now is like I have no control. So one of my biggest learnings over these years has been like, what is it like to just do your work and have no control? And it's been really amazing. So I think in this idea of surrender, it's like, how is it that, I'm doing this tapas, I'm doing this self-study, it's all this like work, 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 work. But then where's the quality of like spaciousness and just allowing for like the time and space for things to happen as they happen. And I feel like I see it all the time, like in writing. Like I'll be like struggling, like to me, writing was such a practice of this, of like, I have these thoughts, I'm going to put them all down, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to think really hard. And then it's only like the next day when you're walking in the woods or you're listening to some music or you're having some other experience that all of a sudden the answer kind of comes rushing to you of like, this is how it comes together. This is what it actually looks like. It's kind of having that openness to letting things percolate and come together as they need to come together. And it might not be the right time for certain actions, and you have to kind of wait until it is the right time.
Yeah, time and space, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I could have done the exact work that we're doing, but in the 1400s, it just wasn't going to work,
Yeah.
Again, there's a sense of humility that we're so small in time-space continuum, and we're doing our best to row our little boat, and try to make a living and try to keep, track of our bodies and stay healthy, not work ourselves to death. But in the end, we don't really have that much control like we think we do.
No, sometimes I tell people like, this is my favorite meditation, and it can sound scary to people. I'll like lay down on the grass, like it's really nice. And you just lay down, look at the clouds, and then you have this experience of that. Like in actuality, you're hurtling through space. You're on this like tiny planet hurtling through space. And it's amazing to think about, like so much is happening outside of our control, outside of our awareness. And we don't know how it's all going to come together.
You and I both do this, but how do we stay motivated to just keep doing the good work, knowing that we have no control? Because I think a lot of times, if you have no control, why bother? Become a nihilist, But I think you and I have found that sweet spot where it's kind of like we're doing it because it's fun to do. What would you say?
Yeah, I think like doing it like when you're somewhere near the beginning of this talk, when you're talking about why we enjoy ethics, it's like it feels inspiring and spacious and energy giving and connecting, and I see it affecting my life, other people's life, and so yeah, it just like it feels like we're what we're supposed to be doing. And I would say, like, in my life, like at different like positions I've had, like I have felt that moment where that was no longer what I was supposed to be doing. And it's not like cognitive thing, it's a felt experience. It's like, oh, this has been great and I love it. I've learned so much, and this is not what I'm supposed to be doing anymore. I don't know how it'll change, but then interestingly it always does shift into the next thing. So I think really listening to our, as yogis, really listening to what is our inner truth from a felt sensation and learning when and how we can trust that.
Absolutely. It's not cognitive. And in fact, I think thinking through it can actually mess it up because you're thinking through with probably fear and attachment and aversion,
and you're trying to make sense of a feeling, and then you make it into a story, and then you try to make it fit into some kind of structure. But what is it to really listen to it?
Yeah. And that's hard, right? Because, okay, I'm going to listen to my inner sensations, but there's still this, you got to pay a mortgage and you've got a car payment. We've been through this together. Like, it's really hard to go inside when there's super real realities out there that you got to do something about in a period of time in a certain way if you're going to keep your house or your car,
Definitely like keeping that balance. And again, it comes to that even reflection with other people, like I'm having this feeling that this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing, or this is where I want to go. And then like, having those people that you really trust that will completely support you. And they will also ask you really good questions.
Yeah. I think what's been magical for me with Ishvara Pranidhana is the times that I literally have thrown in the towel and gave up and said, fine, universe, I don't have any good ideas. I'm all out. You figure it out. And the most magical things have happened. And it's still so shocking to me that I essentially got mad and said, I'm done trying to figure this out for myself. And that was like the moment of transformation. I don't understand that. What is that, Marlysa?
I don't understand that. I don't know what that is. But yeah, it is. And it's really powerful, to feel that kind of connectedness. And I think even, I've experienced times of, very strong turmoil and intense turmoil. And so it wasn't like pleasant in the trusting and the surrender, but it was like the only thing that was left to do. So.
Yeah, when I think about the Niyamas, like we have this tendency to kind of over-identify with effort and under-emphasize reflection and surrender. At least a lot of us Westerners do. Maybe I'm projecting right now, but it seems that's like the pattern that a lot of us have because our ego identification tells us we have more control than we really do.
Yeah, and I think we don't put a lot of, like benefit to surrender, like I don't know that our culture really prioritizes like surrender and letting things be as they need to be. And, how do you do that without being lackadaisical or not doing your part or, so I think it becomes this really interesting balancing out, which is why those three are together. Like there's the tapas of action, there's the reflection, and there's the surrender, and they're all of equal balance.
So if someone was like, wow, I think I want to start working on my niyamas, where would you say they could start? Is it like a little small thing they could start to do or any?
I think two things come to mind. First is like start with the one that feels most resonant. So looking at these 5 and saying like which one speaks to you, which one feels like something interesting and inspiring and that you're curious about, that you want to be curious about. I have really appreciated that Aristotle like golden mean of like, well, what would it look like if I did contentment to an extreme on excess or deficiency, and what would it look like on the other side? And within that Aristotle teaching, it's like you have to find where you tend. Like, do you tend towards the excess or deficiency? So where do you have to work to get into the middle? I think that technique gives us a tangible way to actually put it into practice. But then I think it's just, it's like picking one that you feel most curious about. asking where you are, like tapas. Do you tend towards always taking action, always working, always being active? And so then what would it look like to begin to come into a little bit more surrender, a little bit more letting go, a little bit more allowing? First, Svadhyaya, like what, are you someone that's constantly like second guessing and not really listening to yourself? And what would it be like to really take a pause, listen to what your body is telling you, and then follow that, not follow the mind? So I think taking any of them that like strikes a chord of curiosity and beginning to write up some questions you might ask yourself or someone else, because sometimes it's easier to think about what you would ask someone else. And then thinking about like, what are all the different ways that this could work or look like?
You've been planning this wonderful ethics class for Notre Dame of Maryland. We'll start in the summer. A lot of what you're doing in that course is asking future yoga therapists to look at the yamas and niyamas and then find themselves on those scales of excess and deficiency, that you're actually helping them do that self-reflection in the class. Am I right?
Yeah, we're going to definitely have that experience, and also putting that in relationship to the kleshas. Like, what are the obstacles, and how does this play a part in understanding our scope of practice? But even coming back to your original question or some of your original pieces here about cultural appreciation, how is it that you can be authentic to yoga to where you're like honoring its richness and its depth and its complexity? Because if you don't, then are you really offering someone the benefit of yoga? Sometimes when I think of yoga research that shows that yoga might not have been as effective as we think it is, you look at the protocol and you're like, oh yeah, because that's like just movement. And so, I think we're shortchanging the field and the possible ways that the field grows every time we shortchange, every time we don't offer the depth. We're limiting a person's ability. If we say, oh, that person is not ready for yoga, and we only offer them like just a hamstring stretch, then we're limiting the potential they have for transformation and healing. And who am I to limit someone's healing? Who am I to limit someone's transformation? So if I can offer it instead in language that meets their language, like I might ask them, like, what does it mean to stretch your hamstrings with self-care, with a sense of compassion, with a sense of patience? Synonyms for contentment. I might use the word contentment or different words that are like contentment. Words like allow, but maybe not the word surrender. But asking like, what would it be like? Like, can you imagine that if you stretch your hamstrings with just nothing but effort, that your hamstrings are never going to relax because you're just meeting effort with effort, resistance with resistance. So what would it be like to step back a little bit, to breathe, to connect to a sense of ease or calm or relaxation or grounding, and then meet that hamstring stretch differently? So that every time they go into a movement that is about strengthening or stretching, they're not approaching it from a biomechanical or mechanistic standpoint, which is fine, but they're approaching it from this much deeper opportunity to reflect how I meet my hamstrings is how I meet my life. How I do strengthening is how I relate to other people. So we're really not giving people the opportunity, and that's not healing. That's not being a healing presence. That's not a therapeutic presence. So I think we really have to ask ourselves in this cultural appreciation question that offering yoga in its depth is something that is beneficial and is something that's really important. Sorry if I got off subject there.
Oh, you didn't at all. It's a nice ending, because if the practitioner themselves doesn't know yoga deeply, if they don't know the yamas, niyamas, kleshas, that lens or that framework is not going to come forward in stretching hamstrings, and it's going to become a very biomechanical process. Mm-hmm. The practitioner themselves won't even be able to reflect like, wow, what does it mean to go at stretching of your hamstring with self-care, right? Like that wouldn't be a question that would emerge because they haven't taken the deeper philosophy inside of themselves. Mm-hmm. So that is our advertisement for yoga philosophy and ethics. Anything else you want to say, Marlysa? I know I caught you probably between two meetings, so I don't get to keep you much longer, but anything else you want to add?
I hope that ethical practices can always be something that for people can be something that is inspiring and enriching, that it doesn't, go down into I'm going to follow this rule and this law, but ethics are at the core of how we connect to ourselves in this deeper way and how we connect to others. And it's how we live our life in a way that we can be really proud of and excited by and inspired by, letting that come alive for you. So whichever of the yamas and niyamas are speaking to you, let that be a starting point.
Beautifully said. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me here. I always love talking to you. So let's do more talks.
And we appreciate you coming on and taking this time. Thank you, Marlysa, for being with us today. It was such a pleasure to hear your deep thinking and feeling and being around the niyamas. And I've been having so many thoughts lately about this idea of coming home to self and really feeling at peace within ourselves and not worrying so much about what other people think of us. Obviously, we want to use that as feedback if there's some things we need to change. But in the end, if we know we've acted with integrity and with ethics, maybe it's okay that not everybody loves us and maybe we're not everybody's cup of tea. And can we be okay with that? As long as we've done that internal work and we are where we are and we're okay with that, maybe just showing up from that place is all we can do. And it feels really good to make that decision that we're no longer going to shame ourselves or blame ourselves or pick ourselves apart or be perfectionistic, but rather just this idea of, I know who I am. I like who I am. I'm okay if everyone doesn't love me. I think that I am in integrity and within proper ethics. So that's the things I've been thinking about leading up to this podcast, knowing we would be talking to Marlysa. So I hope you have a great week and we will talk to you soon. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you for being a listener of the Yoga Therapy Hour podcast. We have done over 200 episodes and we have had over 200,000 downloads. And we hope that in some small way we have supported you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. If you'd like to support the Yoga Therapy Hour podcast in 2026, there's several meaningful ways you can do so. First, you can become a member of our Patreon community and donate as little as $5 a month to keep the podcast going. Your contribution helps us to sustain the depth and quality of conversations on the podcast. A second option is that you become an Optimal State mobile app member for both Android and iPhone. Again, this is about $5 a month, and we're going to start providing a lot of amazing content on our mobile app in 2026. We'll definitely want you to be part of that community. We also have a book called Applications of Therapeutic Yoga in Integrative Health. This book will be published by Routledge Publisher in 2026. It's written by Amy Wheeler and Marlysa Sullivan. We hope you'll consider purchasing this book when it comes out. Again, the name is Applications of Therapeutic Yoga in Integrative Health by Wheeler and Sullivan. For those of you who are seeking advanced training in therapeutic yoga or in yoga therapy, please consider checking out the programs at Notre of Maryland School of Integrative Health. We have a MS in yoga therapy, and we also have a postmaster's degree therapeutic yoga for licensed healthcare providers that's starting in the fall of 2026. In addition, we have a comprehensive Ayurveda certificate program also geared towards licensed healthcare providers. Each one of these programs is a pathway designed to support healthcare professionals and yoga teachers and yoga therapists who are ready to integrate these teachings into clinical, education, and community settings. All right, thanks for listening and thanks for supporting the Yoga Therapy Hour podcast. We wish you a wonderful week. We hope that somehow, in a small way, we've contributed to your well-being so that you can go out and share that well-being with others. That's what life is all about, bringing in the goodness through you and then shining it out to the world. We need you more than ever. So let's all get out there, do good, be good, and have a great week.